Wait, Ashley, you didn't put a title on here.
Yeah, I did.
Nah, there's clearly no title.
Clearly there is. You just have to look.
Oh. Well, welcome to our little corner of the internet we like to call Geek to My Nerd. I'm Joe.
And I'm Ashley.
And we are continuing our To Infinity War and Beyond coverage with one of my personal favorites, Ant-Man. This movie came out in...
Let's look at the facts.
Yeah.
Well, actually, before we look at the facts, of course, if you haven't ever been here before, we do a general overview, which includes facts. Then we talk about our gripes and our likes. Because this is a pre-Infinity War movie, we go over the MCU connections, talk about Stan Lee cameos, after credits, the significance of all of those elements.
Yup.
All right, so first for the facts, like Joe said earlier, Ant-Man came out on July 17th in 2015, directed by Peyton Reed. It was the 6th movie in the second phase, so it closed out phase 2.
Mm-hmm.
It opened at number 1 at the box office. Its budget was $130 million, and it grossed over $500 million at the worldwide box office.
Yes. Not including, like, video sales and such afterwards.
Yeah, they just include, movie sales.
Cal, the Kingslayer Network, has joined us.
Nice.
So. Welcome, Cal. Anyway, so let's jump into our gripes.
And honestly, there weren't too many. These are more like nitpicks.
Yeah, but we got to add something. He's got Henry Cavill mouth.
Yeah, it's not as bad as Henry Cavill, but when they, the process that they did to de-age Michael Douglas was first there was a makeup process.
And then they touched
And then they used the, I think it's like VFX. Or I forgot what they call it, actually.
Yeah.
But they have this magical fountain of youth technology that has improved a lot since, the days of Tron Legacy.
Yes.
And I think we first saw this type of thing in, I think it was one of the Avengers or Iron Man.
It was
with Tony Stark.
It was Civil War.
It was Civil War.
Captain America Civil War.
Okay, so this is the precursor then, because Civil War is next, but... So yeah, it looks good, but when he talks, it's just a little awkward. So I don't know if it was trying to erase any kind of mouth lines, because as you age, that's probably one of the first places where you start to get a lot of lines and wrinkles is around your mouth and around your eyes, and it's probably easier to hide the ones on the eyes because you don't have to talk so much or when you're an actor, you do have to talk a lot.
Yep.
So it just looked a little funny. And again, it doesn't really look bad in a still picture, but on screen, it was very noticeable.
Yep. This dude's hair. Oh my God.
Yeah. So this guy, I think his last name is Carson, and he's one of the antagonists in the movie. And they also did makeup and the de-aging, and you can tell that he has a wig as well, and it just looks so bad.
The wig is especially bad. Everything else is pretty bad, but that wig is heinous. Yeah, he just, most people have probably seen the movie already, but of course he is the head of defense for S.H.I.E.L.D., I believe, at this time, and later for a group of people that aren't what they used to be.
Yes. All right, and then another person that has an interesting haircut is Hope Van Dyne.
This is more of your thing, but I get it.
Yes, just like the 2015 Bob, we saw this with
Jurassic World.
Yeah, Jurassic World with Claire's character. I don't know what stylist thought that these were good looks for anybody.
Someone from the 1980s.
But it makes her look so much older, and I don't remember how old Evangeline Lilly is supposed to be, but it made her feel... 10, 15 years older than her actual age. Because if you see what she looks like in the sequel pictures where she has longer hair, sometimes in a ponytail, she looks much more youthful.
Yeah.
So it just kind of the character choice. I guess it's she's a stuffy person, so
it feels like a very 80s haircut too. That feels like it needs extra shoulder pads.
I think that was kind of a popular look in the 80s.
Yeah.
If I remember the few years of the 80s I was alive for. This is another one that bothered me, and it's not so much that like it's the story. It's just the way that Michael Douglas as Hank Pym delivers the story about how Hope's mom had disappeared and passed away in the quantum realm, and then she turned off her regulator and went subatomic. It just, if you see this scene out of context, this is like accidentally hilarious. Just it's so like, ridiculous.
It's like soap opera caliber.
Yeah, it's like very soap opera or like something that you'd see on the CW.
Yeah.
And like Michael Douglas, you know, is kind of a terrible person he is in real life, is a good actor. Yes. So he could not make this. Like, this is supposed to be a heartfelt moment. And like I was trying not to laugh when he said these lines, especially, and then she went subatomic.
But Hank Pym's an awkward, sciencey dude, and I guess I don't know if it was on purpose, but that's definitely not out of character for him.
Yeah.
What else we got?
All right, and then
this is
a little awkward.
So we get that they become close over the course of the movie, but the fact that it does end with them like kissing and having a little romantic moment,
why?
Like, okay, I guess we had to do that. That felt wildly unnecessary, but sure.
And then it was kind of saved by Hank catching them,
which brings us to is that how we bridge it?
Not yet.
Okay,
but yeah, it kind of saves it. Because, like, then Scott kind of was like, why did you kiss me, Hope? Oh, my gosh. And then Hank is, like, calling him out on his
BS. Mm-hmm. It deflates the situation pretty well. So, it turns it into a fun little joke.
Yeah, so it's a very minor gripe. I actually don't mind these two characters together.
I don't, but it's the fact that, like,
it kind of felt like
all the time.
It kind of fell out of nowhere.
Yeah.
All right, then my last gripe has to do that this is actually a tank.
Yes.
And according to the science of the movie, this tank should weigh as much as an actual tank should, yet it's on his keychain. So, movie logic fail.
But Pym particles are a miracle.
Yeah, but you still have your same mass. It didn't make
particles are a miracle.
So it's a tank that weighs nothing. That's not a useful tank.
Mass and weight aren't always 100% linked.
Okay, but anyway. So yeah, that's like a little flub or plot hole or whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it. It's fun. It's a tank on a keychain. So is that all of our gripes?
Yeah, that's all of the gripes.
We don't have a lot in the chat right now. I know Cal's already said he's here. If we have anyone else that happens to be in the chat, feel free to sound off, and we'll answer commentary. We'll chat with you.
Yeah,
all that good stuff. But I guess it's time to move on to the likes. If we don't really have that many chatters today, don't have the clickety clack of the ant noise.
Yeah.
So we're on to our Ant-Man likes.
All right, so one of the things that I really liked about Ant-Man was the masterful editing. So we have this scene where he gets out of jail. Look, man, I got a master's in electrical engineering, all right? Like, it'll be no problem for me to get a job. And then it cuts to, welcome to Baskin-Robbins.
Yep.
And, like, that whole scene was pretty great where this kid comes up who happens to be the kid from Superstore. He was like a super annoying character on that show. So this kind of just made this on the rewatch more enjoyable. And he's trying to order like a pretzel, and Scott's like, what? We don't have that. It's like, yeah, I'll just have a burger. I'll just have whatever's hot and fresh, and just like using all these other like foods. And it's kind of hard to tell, is the kid really just so stupid? Or is he being a kid and trolling Scott? And Scott's name tag actually says Jack on it. So I don't know if like he lied about his name to get the job or what. But that was something that I noticed that I hadn't noticed before. And you actually have a little story about.
Oh, yeah. So when I worked at GameStop as an assistant manager, we were right next to a Smoothie King. And said Smoothie King always had like it was more than once in the few years I was there. It had to be like 6 or 7 times in a 3-year period, that people would come in and start ordering smoothies. They made it all the way to the front counter of the store, which is a good 15 feet from the door, before sometimes they would start ordering smoothies before they realized they were in a GameStop. And that's just...
And you have to pass like several things that are huge clues that you're not in a Smoothie King.
Also the sound effects and, you know, no board with all the smoothie stuff on it.
20-ounce angel food. We don't have that.
So, yeah.
And then this thing that went, this was like one of the memes of the movie. Baskin Robbins always finds out. That was so funny. And then this guy is so impressed, but I guess there's probably some kind of corporate reason why Scott cannot work there. And especially if he did lie about his actual identity, that could be a reason why as well. Because he never calls him Scott. He's like, hey, buddy, or hey, chief, come in here.
Yeah.
Never refers to him by name. So I thought that was a pretty interesting little touch there. All right, so this whole movie is full of these like comedy gold moments. My days of breaking into places and stealing stuff are done. What do you want me to do? I want you to break into a place and steal some stuff.
Yeah, this is really good line pacing and really good delivery. It's like half of it is the script and the other half is the actual actors being able to deliver this straight-faced with little sarcasm or joke intent in it, and it's beautiful. It's art.
And then this other one, like, can I go back to jail now? Like,
yeah, because he wakes up surrounded by bullet ants. And
in a strange, well, not a strange house because he's been there before because he stole from
him. But it's strange to wake up there whenever he passed out riding on the back of an ant, super tiny, breaking out of jail.
Yeah.
So
that was pretty great. And then, of course, the voice of the audience, the thing that we've been saying, and as I said in the Honest trailer, since Phase 2 started, I think our first move should be calling the Avengers.
And it's really funny because Scott's the voice of the audience even further. Like, he is us in the movie because he's also us in Civil War. Like, because what happens when he gets pulled into the whole Cap versus Iron Man thing? He, like, geeks out over getting to meet Captain America.
And he's he's fanboying way too much.
He really is. He's just like, oh my God, I know who you are. Look, I know you know a bunch of like super people, but I want to thank you of thanking for me. Yeah. And it's it's that tongue-tiedness and everything else. So pretty great.
And then Luis, who is one of the most positive characters in the MCU. How's your girl been? Oh, she left me and my mom died too. And my dad got deported, but I got the van.
Right? Silver linings, Luis.
And it's definitely one of my favorite characters because he's just so positive and a totally unreliable narrator. Twice in the movie, he's having to explain like these, like where he got the tip for the heist and then something else that we'll talk about later. And it's like, okay, give me the details. And he starts talking about these irrelevant details about like, I'm not a big fan of that, but they had a rosé that saved the day. It's like wrong details.
Right. I'm not a big fan of red, but...
And then the other one has some pretty bizarre things, too, where it's like, those are the first that I ever saw. It's like, dude, nobody needs to know this. And then when they're doing, like, the check-in for, like, okay, who knows their role? It's like, I get to dress up as a dude. It's like, could you please just say what your job is? Like, I'm just excited.
I also like, when we have him in the system, I'm in the system.
Like, he stole a smoothie machine, right? It was 2 smoothie machines.
It's the deleted scenes of the smoothie machine part with this crew, by the way.
This crew is phenomenal.
I love a good... I am a sucker for a heist movie. If you've talked with me on Twitter or watched any of our videos, I am down for a good heist movie, and a good heist movie has to have your crew. And since Ant-Man is a comedy heist movie, the crew needs to also be funny, and I feel like these guys are just...
They're very funny. I like when the police find them later on, and then I think that's T.I., right? Yep. I can't remember his character's name. T.I. But it's like, oh man, there was a dude, he looked just like me, that like threw us into this van and then ran away. Trying to lie. Threw us in the
back of this crappy van. And but I do like one of the deleted scenes that the hacker guy starts talking about, like, yeah, the smoothie machines, you can put anything in there, like rutabaga, some ham, and this and that, just a bunch of stuff, and he like names off all these things.
That
He's like,
don't
and it
sound
would always come
appetizing.
out tasting like banana.
Everything. And then the little Russian hacker guy,
Yeah.
and the guy's not really Russian. He's doing like the very stereotypical
Accent.
Russian accent, but it
the
works
first
for this
time-
movie because it's funny.
I've seen this guy in a lot of stuff. I don't remember his name, and I wish I could. But he, first time I saw him was in The Dark Knight, where he was a police officer or some dude who was working for the Joker.
The Joker.
The Joker.
All right, and then this little sequence is just some different parts of the montage. I thought that they did the storytelling of him trying to learn to use his powers very well with the montage, where it wasn't just like, okay, let's learn how to jump through this. Let's learn how to do all these things like one at a time. It was just kind of amalgam of all the different skills that he was having to learn to be the Ant-Man. And so that really helped with the pacing of the movie. It was a very smart editing move. So we see like him trying to run through and jump through the keyhole.
And there's always the little thud on the other side, because they'll show the camera on the other side of the door where Hank and Hope are.
Yeah, where he failed, and of course, eventually he gets it. They're talking about his abilities, and if you punch too hard, you could kill someone.
So he actually has to train like martial arts to learn to punch properly.
And he was like, I went to prison. I know how to punch. It's like, no, that wasn't a punch. This is a punch. It's like,
she clocks him in the face.
Were you aiming for the hand? And this is like where we get like another little bit of like her poor relationship with her father, where it's like, oh yeah, when she was having some times, she studied martial arts. It's like, oh, you mean when my mom died? Like, could you shut up, Dad, and leave me alone? I already hate this plan.
Yep.
Because she wants to be the one, like, just let me do it. I already know how to do everything. Why won't you let me? And she doesn't understand it. And so that kind of situation boils to a head at this moment where Scott is failing to learn to control the ants.
Mm-hmm.
And then she just like takes it from him and kind of like goes like a little bit overboard, or at least like Pym feels that she is when she starts like blacking out the entire like light in the room with all the different ants. And you can just read on her face and see how upset she is. And like, she doesn't even understand like why Scott would want to do this, because he has a daughter, and it's like, I'm doing it for my daughter.
Yep.
And then that's where he kind of points out to her, it's like, your dad doesn't want to lose you. This is very risky. So that's why he's preventing you from doing
basically,
this.
like, he sums it up in like, I'm expendable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I cannot make it out of this. He'd rather lose this mission than lose you.
Yeah.
And that's pretty poignant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this movie's full of dad imagery. So many dads. All the dads. Really only like 3 dads, but one dad is like dad to like 3 people. So.
Yeah. And then like him running with all the little ants, like that was cool. It's been a while since we've had a micro movie like this. And did a really good job with the practical and special effects, the visual computer effects. Like him giving a little droplet to Anthony.
This movie made me cry about a bug.
I know, right? Yeah, that's what's like, you don't name them because there's hundreds of them.
Yep, but no, Scott knows.
This is Anthony.
Scott knows Anthony.
And then the little girl, his daughter, Cassie, I just loved her so much. It's like, are you looking for my daddy?
Well, yeah, I just want to find him and bring him home safe.
Yeah, I hope you don't find him.
Yeah, she knows the score.
And when we were introduced to her at the little birthday party, it's like, I didn't know what time the party was, sweetie. Well, it was on the invitation, just like totally in that childlike bliss of, it's my birthday, I'm getting presents, my dad's here, and you don't have like that logic of, oh, you didn't get an invitation.
Mom was so excited that you're here. She spit out her drink.
Yeah, that was great. And of course, her mom is everyone's mom from every movie now.
Yeah.
We talked about that when we did Jurassic World.
Yep. Cal is pointing out the new Fortnite skin is Ant-Man, and perhaps we need to grab that.
Oh, nice.
All right, so Corey Stoll is like my favorite part of this movie, and a movie that is already full of my favorite parts of this movie. And I didn't realize it until the most recent, until we started basically watching it in preparation for this show. He plays Darren Cross, who is Pym's like
protege.
Yeah, his protege growing up, and then Pym was like, "Nah, you're too much like me," so he kind of just cut him off. And yeah, so he's the one who creates the Yellow Jacket, rediscovers the Pym particles, and creates, this super weapon. The thing about him is he does so much fantastic physical acting in this movie. His face constantly looks like someone who's about to go off the edge, and his physical presence is intense and scary and just intimidating, and it's incredibly impressive to watch in the movie.
Yeah, and then I like when he is introducing the investors to the idea of the technology that he's about to
the Yellow Jacket
to figure out. And he makes this comment about tales to astonish.
Yeah, because he's referring to Ant-Man, and because they set it up that Ant-Man, unlike in the regular comic universe where he is a contemporary of the rest of the Marvel characters, in this he's like a forefather of what these characters are. He was a super spy and super secret agent and super scientist for S.H.I.E.L.D. in the 1960s through 80s, and basically fought for S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Cold War. And that was what Cross kind of came for, is he wanted to figure all that out. So when he's introducing, he's like, yeah, but they called you something else, didn't they, Dr. Pym? References the comics.
I love the things that it says on the front of the comic. Save me, somebody, save me. Don't let them drag me there, not into the anthill. Let them tell you while I still can how it happened, for I was the man in the anthill. And then this one, you'll gasp in amazement at the return of the Ant-Man. Stop him, my pets. Obey your leader. The Ant-Man commands you.
Hank Pym's kind of a dick.
And then talking about
the physical. So this scene, it's like he walks in all strung out looking because he's stressed. He snatches the freaking data pad from one of the technician, and one hand grabs this machine and drags it around, and he's just like I don't know. It's just something about the way he carries himself in this scene. It's just he's agitated and frustrated and angry and just ready to if this didn't work again, he was gonna blow up on one of the techs or point at one of them, because at this point we know he already does. So it was an impressive scene to watch.
And then when he gets it to work, just the joy in his face, but you can also see that how haggard he looks.
Yeah.
It finally worked. It finally worked. I've got the technology.
And what does he do to this tiny little goat or tiny little sheep? He flicks the container it's in, and it it flips out and falls, and he's just
yeah, well, this is not a good dude.
Well, yeah, because one of the scenes before, when they bring out one of the sheeps they're experimenting on, Hope's I thought we were using mice, and he's like, what's the difference?
Yeah, what's the difference?
Honestly, I get that, but it's the delivery of that line where it's just yeah, all life is expendable. I don't care. So yeah.
And then this intense moment where Hank walks into the room and oh, you're here, and they're like, oh no, the plans, and so then he has to get the ants to roll up the plan so that he doesn't see them, but he probably already saw them.
And I remember seeing this in the theater and thinking, he's about to just start choking Hank Pym in his own house.
And of course, we later learned that that's what he was going for.
Yep.
But then Hope was there, and it's well, I wasn't ready to kill you, so I didn't kill him.
Yep.
And then when
they think the plan's working.
Yeah, because everything is going pretty well. There's a few bumps in the road with their heist, but then gets trapped in there, and this is where things start to get really cool with the little miniaturized fight scenes. And we see this cool fight in a briefcase between him and the Yellow Jacket, and then he says something about, I'm
gonna disintegrate you,
and then it's play this by The Cure, and
play so then Disintegration by The Cure.
So then that song starts playing, and it's a really cool.
The laser shatters a freaking lifesaver that's rolling around in this briefcase, and that's what all that crystal looking stuff is. It's fantastic, and it works surprisingly well for just being two incredibly tiny micro machine dudes flying around punching each other.
Yeah. And then, of course, the best battle is the one in Cassie's room.
Yeah.
Because, Yellow Jacket's a terrible person who's going to go attack a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And so they're having, this fight on the train. And, of course, this is the best, product placement in a movie ever with Thomas the Tank Engine.
Yep.
Like, and then you can kind of see like, oh no.
Which that was a scene from the trailer that they use, and it's a spoil, it's a reveal. It's kind of like, oh, why'd they do that? But it still worked really well. Where he's just like, oh no, and they cut out super far, and you just see it derail.
Yeah, and then the derail is just it's so basic because it's not a real.
It's like if there was like a bump in the track, kind of derail.
Because it's not a real train, so there's not going to be like a massive explosion or anything, and it was really cool how they did that.
Yep.
I think they used both. They used the microverse very well in this.
Yep.
And then, of course, he throws one of his.
At one point, he's trying to force Yellow Jacket to grow by hitting him with his little blue discs or whatever, and he hits the train that's on the window that shatters the roof of the house and falls out and breaks a police car.
And then I love the little eyes are just like going back and forth like
they're designed to do.
And so that I liked that.
Yep, this whole final scene was fantastic with like all the just everything about the fight scene involving. Him and Yellow Jacket at the end were really good. And this is what I really like. I like this weird little non-conventional family film because that's kind of what this feels like at the end of the day. Like Scott finds his family, and even he and Paxton kind of come to terms, and because they both care about Cassie, and I can't remember Judy Greer's name, so I'll just say Judy Greer.
The ex Mrs. Ant-Man.
Yeah, right. And it's just they want to be like together as a family, and it works really well. But the best member of the family, did you get a picture of the best member of the family? Yes, you did.
So yeah, one of the ants gets enlarged, and so now this is just like a new dog in the house.
Yep, Cassie's new dog.
Because the other cop, Paxton's partner's like, that's a weird looking dog.
Yeah.
Like, that was funny. But yeah, I also like the unconventional family and how Paxton was like, oh yeah, like that whole jail thing, like they just lost your paperwork, so I made sure that they understood that
you got booked properly.
That you got booked properly. I don't know how that happened, so it's kind of a growth between the two male figures in her life.
So there were a few MCU connections to this one, surprisingly.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah.
So, of course, you already mentioned Peggy Carter, and so they did makeup to make her look older because her prime time was in the Second World War, so she'd be significantly older.
Hayley Atwell, not getting nearly as much love in the Marvel Universe as she deserved.
Yeah, so she's pretty great. Of course, it was really fun to see her. This whole cold open was fantastic.
Yes.
And then, of course,
John Slattery
as Howard Stark, so reprising all of his Iron Man roles. I think the only one where he was a different actor was in the Captain America movie.
The first Captain America movie where he was Dominic Cooper.
And then this was like your favorite moment.
There's a part where is it Connors again? I can't remember the guy's name.
I think so.
Says something about Pym's wife, like, "Oh, if only you protected your wife with that much fervor," and it just cuts to Stark in his face. Goes like, "Oh, you idiot!
You idiot!" And of course, Pym punches him.
Well, I think he grabs his face and slams it into the desk, and it's brutal.
Yeah, Pym's not a nice person.
He's a troubled sort. So yeah, they at one point they do go to the Avengers base in upstate.
This is supposed to be like an abandoned facility, and it's like, oh no, this place is totally active.
So I kind of wonder how Pym didn't know that already. I feel like this should be knowledge he'd have access to.
So it's kind of like a little gripe for you.
I wouldn't say it's a gripe. It just I didn't care enough to make it a gripe. But it just did feel kind of weird that like, oh yeah, this whole this abandoned Stark facility, like he didn't use the
because he found all that information on Scott to figure out the best way to target him without directly seeking him.
Yep.
Like you think he could figure this out?
Cal says this is a good fight scene with the whole
Yeah, like this was a great scene. Of course, I love Falcon, and they made fun. Yeah, they made fun on this trailer. It's like the one Avenger we could afford, but like I'm glad they didn't pick one of the bigger names because like this helps Ant-Man kind of stand on his own a little more when you pick someone from like the new batch or the new team or whatever you want to call it.
And honestly, not that I'm trying to detract from Falcon, but like Vision and Scarlet Witch would have like obliterated Ant-Man because he's like, ha, and they're just like powers.
Yeah, so you needed somebody that also has their tech
Yeah.
That
A
is
tech hero.
somebody else that, somebody else made this, but now you're the one in control. And that's how both of them are, is they're not the scientists that created the tech, but they're now learning how to use it.
And Falcon is definitely better than Scott in this whole situation. Scott's just, he's clever, he's cunning.
Yeah, Scott has the advantage of being able to become small, and Falcon doesn't know how to fight that yet because this is like a new power that he's encountered.
Now he's adapting pretty quickly though, because he's got the tech to be able to spot him and find him and hear him and everything. And that I think is what helps Falcon be able to handle it. But it was in general a fantastic fight, and I think the only time we see a guy in the MCU do the net grab, the scissors net grab with the legs.
Yeah, and the only reason that Scott was able to get away is that he was able to shrink down and get into the
suit.
Yeah, the suit, because it's not like an airtight suit.
Yep.
And he was able to dismantle
a tactic that Scott reuses in Civil War against Iron Man.
And Falcon was like, nobody.
It's very important that you do not let Cap know this happened.
Yeah, that the Captain does not find out about this. And so that was like this a great little cameo that lets you know that this is part of a bigger situation, and this character will come up later as well.
But yes, this is a fantastic fight scene.
And so, of course, some of the people that Cross is selling to are Hydra. And if you look on that man in the foreground, he has a little tattoo that's peeking up above his collar. And you can kind of see it a little better in this scene from an earlier part of the movie, but that is a tattoo of the 10 rings.
Of the Mandarin.
Of the Mandarin. So I've already had like Iron Man 3 and that kind of thing happen, so it kind of lets you know that,
maybe
those kind of
still there.
Well, that, or at least his agents are still out there.
Yep.
Obviously, not getting that cover up. Like, yeah, I need to go get this covered up.
Either that, or Hydra is just hiring former Mandarin people.
That could be it too. So I like that little, small little connection. And then the last scene, Lewis's second unreliable narrator story has to do with the fact that the Avengers are looking for the Ant-Man, and so we kind of see in the other side of the picture that we have Falcon talking to someone who's like a
reporter,
big shot reporter,
guerrilla reporter.
Yeah, guerrilla reporter, portrayed by the lovely Anna Akana. And so she's talking about we got people that can fly, we got people that can swing, crawl walls,
and jump.
And so basically a lot of allusions to Spider-Man.
Yep. Also, Jessica Jones can jump. Interesting.
What about Luke Cage?
He's bulletproof and super strong.
Yeah.
I mean, he could probably jump better than I could.
But yeah, Jessica does jump. So a lot of references to, especially Spider-Man stands out the most. So this could have been like a huge hint to the fact that Spider-Man was going to be in Civil War if they hadn't already spoiled it at this point, which I don't remember.
I don't know if they even knew at this point, because they still had. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but
because it would have been.
It was like a month or two before that they started really spoiling that heavily.
Yeah, so this probably would have been like a big clue, because this came out in July, and then that would have come out in May of next year. So that would have been a little further apart in the releases.
Yep.
But yeah, that was a cool little moment to little Easter eggs of who else is on the roster that they're looking at.
Our Stan Lee cameo is related to that scene we were just talking about.
Yeah,
where he's a bartender.
Yeah, he's a bartender at whatever club that him and his cousin were at.
Or his cousin and
the reporter.
And it's the only Stan Lee cameo where he has a line, but we don't hear him deliver it.
Yeah,
it's
somebody else.
Luis.
Yeah, and that's a really funny pull as well, where you see all of the different characters' mouths moving, but Luis is the one that's narrating it all. And so it's pretty funny.
Yep.
And then, of course, he confirms at the end that, yes, they are looking for you. And he's excited about it. And it kind of just ends so awkwardly, but it's so adorable.
So, yeah, we have 2 credit scenes on this one. The mid and post.
So our mid-credits, Pym talks about this was a new suit that he was making for his wife. But really, we think we were making it for you. And so she says it was about time.
Yep.
And so very similar to something that happened in Iron Man with the War Machine.
And it will be noted, the Honest Trailers people pointed this out super early, that like Ant-Man feels very much like it's Iron Man.
Yeah, their joke about it was called like Tiny Iron Man.
Yeah, because
There's a lot of similarities.
The Iron Man's primary villain is a dude with similar powers, who's a bald guy that used to be his friend and is now his enemy.
That took over his company.
That took over his company, and that's what happens here too.
Yeah. But she'll actually get to reprise her role and be the Wasp, so that's cool.
Yes. Though, getting Don Cheadle over Terrence Howard's also fine.
Upgrade. But, Evangeline Lilly's a good actress.
I loved her in this, and I'm excited for Ant-Man and the Wasp. And our post-credit scene. Yeah, this is one of my least favorites. It's in the same pool as the end of Captain America, the First Avenger, or whichever one came right before the Avengers, because it was literally just a scene plucked from the Avengers, and this is what happens here. It's literally a scene from Civil War, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, it's like teasing you about that, but then it's like there's no substance because you're gonna see it later.
Yeah.
It's like cool in the moment, but not cool.
Yeah, whenever you're like, oh, it's literally like if this was just another part of the same scene, like a part that isn't in Civil War, but we can recognize the location and the clothes and things like that, then it would be different.
Kind of like what they did in Thor Ragnarok, where you see Thanos' ship, but and then you see Thor and Loki talking, and you see Thanos' ship, but they don't recycle that scene.
No.
Because they start that movie after that point has happened and all sorts of bad stuff has happened.
Yep. That is a good way to do something like that. So is that all of our stuff?
We have a little bit more to talk about.
Oh, I forgot. We're back.
Yeah, so we got phase charts back. So we finally got to fill in phase 2. Ant-Man was in number 1 at the box office for 2 weeks in a row, and we got to also update our Infinity War. When we last left it had been number 1 for 2 weeks, and it peaked out at 3 at number 1 for 3 weeks in a row. And then I added Ant-Man's facts to the chart. So again, a little bit lower budget than pretty much every other MCU movie, even Iron Man and like Captain America. So, maybe it was the property, maybe there was a lot of other factors, but they didn't spend a lot of money on this movie, but it doesn't look like it was at any loss for that. It looks like a really good, solid movie. All those visual effects, except for a few things, are pretty solid looking. Yeah, so I don't know why they didn't invest, because you see the other ones in the slate, which of course are all sequels except for Guardians, like they got a bump up in the budget. So I'm not sure why the Ant-Man budget would have been so much lower than everything else, even stuff from phase 1.
Yeah, the Ant-Man's only like 10 million under First Avenger and Iron Man, which 10 million is not a huge amount. It's also not a small amount.
Yeah, but when you're looking at, Guardians, and maybe there was some more visual effects that had to be done for that, maybe they're accounting for more A-list actors in that one.
Well, and some of that is probably sets they had to build from scratch, as opposed to stuff like Pym's house might have been a house that they had access to. They could just rent.
And the fact that I guess they must have changed directors early on in the process, because I don't think they had shot a lot of things with Edgar Wright, because that would have definitely bumped the budget up when they have to account for a director change.
And I think that's part of the reason, like, for example, Solo was so much more expensive to make in general.
Because they had shot a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So,
but we see that it was fairly highly regarded among audiences at 86% from Rotten Tomatoes, and it got an A Cinema score, so it met the audience expectations based off trailers and marketing. And critics liked it as well at 82%, so both of those are fresh scores. Rotten Tomatoes, worldwide box office wise, is obviously it's not going to be $1 billion baby like some of these big team up movies.
It's got Paul Rudd,
but over half a $500,000 isn't too bad. That's better than first timers like the Hulk, and did better than the first Thor, the first the first Captain America.
It only did a little worse than Thor: Dark World, too.
Which was poorly regarded by critics and not as liked by audiences. didn't do quite as good as Guardians, but you know, not everybody can be Guardians.
No, very few movies can. So,
and then it's hard to see in this graphic, it got cut off, but Black Panther and Infinity War are still in theaters, and so those box office had risen up to Black Panther is still holding strong at $1.3 billion worldwide, and Infinity War has reached over $2 billion worldwide,
which is slowly catching up with Avatar, which I think is like one of the biggest grossing movies of all time. So yeah, I know it's beaten Titanic, which is impressive. So much for superhero fatigue.
What's that?
Right. Which it's also kind of an interesting situation. I think this is one of the handful of times, if not the first time, that two Marvel movies have been in the theater at the same time. So
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I'm not either. That's why I'm like, if it's not the first time, it's definitely one of the quote unquote handful of times.
Yeah, because like Black Panther and Infinity War are out around the same times, you know, because Black Panther had such a long run.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting if Black Panther and Infinity War are still in the theater when Ant-Man and the Wasp come out. I imagine Infinity War will still be there. But Black Panther is, you know, that was released in February.
If it's still in the theater, domestically, it's like in dollar theaters at this point because it's already out on DVD as well. So Blu-ray, I guess, is the format. We still say DVD. So I think that's it.
Yeah,
that's all of our charts and paperwork and sheets and important factoids of mathematical importance. So overall, this has got to be one of my absolute favorite Marvel movies. It is hands down one of my favorite. I won't say it's one of the best because I will fully admit that probably at least the other two that came out this year are better constructed films than this. But I would say that it's at least one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my favorites too. I was just pulling up the other part of the chart real quick that got cut off. But
table's getting big. We got to start shrinking fonts.
Yeah, I got to. Yeah, I don't have to. Yeah, I forgot. I should have shrank fonts, so I didn't do that. I'll probably next time I'm just going to compare Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, like opening weekends, that kind of thing.
Yep. But yeah, what about you? Final thoughts on Ant-Man?
I love this movie. I forgot how much I love this movie. We've literally watched it every day.
Yes,
since we were like, okay, we need to watch it. We watched it. We watched it today. We watched it yesterday.
We watched it Friday.
So I forgot how. I think I'm trying to think of the right way to say it. It's such a fun movie. And I'm really looking forward to Ant-Man and the Wasp because after Infinity War, which was so stressful because it starts off like literally like killing people.
Yeah.
Like I'm interested to see how this one ends, if it kind of like bumps up to Infinity War. But I think I'm going to really enjoy the ride. I really like they're giving Peyton Reed another chance.
And, you know, Edgar Wright may have sparked the ideas for this, and you can probably see some of his handiwork in the script and some of that stuff. But giving him the reins and letting him run free, I think, was the best option they could have done because it made the movie turn out fantastically.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see, like, from the beginning, like, how Peyton Reed will do because, like, obviously the spine of Ant-Man was Edgar Wright's creation. He cast all the major characters, but a lot of the little decisions were things that Peyton Reed made. So I'm interested to see like when he gets to have like total control, except for the returning characters, the ones that are going to reprise their roles.
Right.
I'm interested to see all of that, and I know they're going to be focusing on like the quantum realm and that kind of thing, which we didn't really even talk about with this.
Yeah.
Which those effects were good.
Yeah. And I think those effects were like getting us ready for Doctor Strange effects. I am excited that Lawrence Fishburne's joining as Goliath, even though I don't think he suits up and becomes Goliath for this, but it's the character that was Goliath, which makes sense because Goliath was one of Ant-Man's contemporaries, kind of had similar powers. There's a lot of like we get small and also really big superheroes in the Marvel universe. And then I can't remember the actress's name, but she was in Ready Player One as whatever her weird name was.
Oh, was that Finale?
Finale.
That was such a dumb name. Sorry.
It's a cool character. She was cool.
I don't think she was in the book, but she was cool.
It was a nice addition. It's just the name was really bad.
Come on, Spielberg. Or whoever.
Better than this.
Or Ernest Cline, because I think he wrote the script.
He was probably heavily involved, I imagine.
Yeah, think of a better name, yo.
But she was fine, and she plays Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And, we know Michelle Pfeiffer's in it. And if you haven't heard who she is, I'm not going to spoil that for you, but she's in it, and it's awesome that she's going to be in the movie.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. I think the entire crew is back as well. Because there's the part where I'm surprised you came to us,
We robbed you.
Because we robbed you. Scott robbed him. Scott. So yeah, that's been our talk about Ant-Man and the Wasp. This came in shorter than most of ours. We didn't have a huge turnout for this one.
Yeah.
It's fine. It happens. It was a small show.
Mm-hmm.
One might say tiny.
Really?
Yeah, I'm getting there. I love this movie so much. So yes, this next weekend at about this time, 8 p.m.-ish, we're going to be back for Ant-Man and the Wasp, or like we like to call the Wasp movie. At least I like to, because she's way cooler. She's way more hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
She's also got wings and blasters. I wonder if they had that they didn't have that for Scott's suit though, right?
No, well, we could have.
What? Also, I'm glad that what I like to call Anthony Jr., the ant that became the house pet of...
he's still there.
He's still there. Learn how to play the drums.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little ridiculous, but I'm down.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us. We'll be back next weekend. I've been Joe.
I've been Ashley.
And we've been Geek to My Nerd. And a little after this, we're going to get something to eat. And then I'm probably going to stream some Fallout over on Twitch.
Nice.
So I'll see you there.
I want to stream.
We'll stream something soon.
All right.
Good night, everybody.